Good morning and welcome to Bolton. I'm Joyce Stilley, the Administrative Officer for the Town of Bolton, and this is a live show done the first and the third Tuesdays of each month from 10:30 to 11 a.m. The show is rebroadcast on the second and fourth Tuesdays at the same time period. The show is a continuing effort to promote open communications within the community, and if you have an upcoming event, an organization you would like to get some publicity out on, or just have a question as to how town government operates, please contact me at the town hall and we'll try to get a show on the air that covers that topic. Throughout the different years, I always try to bring in special people, and this is no exception. At least once a year, we try to bring in the fire department, and so it's my honor to have with me today Chief Dixon. Welcome, Chief.
Good morning, Joyce, and thank you very much for having me again. Yep.
And that's, we've worked together for many years now, but perhaps you can talk a little bit about your background for the people.
Well, many years we have worked together. My background, I started off in Bolton, in the fire department here. Continued on after a few years, moved to Manchester, 8th Utilities District. Went over to Tallinn Fire Department, became deputy chief there, and 14 years ago I came back to Bolton, where I started my roots, I guess we call that there. So enjoyed a nice round robin of different departments and education to come back to Bolton and help out. Yep.
And you've been chief in Bolton for a while now, and people may not realize that actually the fire department is strictly volunteer.
Yes, it is. I've been chief for going on 6 years, in town here. Volunteer, we've got about 40 volunteer members in the department. Come from all different walks of life, from carpenters to business people to students to town employees. And it's a nice mix because they all bring different talents with them, into the department. All volunteer means they get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and go to work, but if we have an emergency call, they could leave work, depending on their jobs. Or living in town, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning, my favorite time of the day. Usually we have a lot of emergency calls. And there's no special time for it. It's when people are in need, we get up, leave what we're doing, and off we go. Yep.
And for volunteer departments, Connecticut itself actually has quite a few volunteer departments yet. That's more the norm than the other way around.
Yeah, right now, Connecticut itself has about 75% of the fire departments are all volunteer. The other being career paid departments. It's kind of nice to see that in the volunteer departments, we do a lot of training with the members, and a number of those individuals, men and women, go on to career departments, so they advance themselves, and very proud of giving them the base support initially for that. Good.
And that's potentially, as we're looking at things, volunteerism is becoming more of a challenge for people to have that time. There's so many other demands on time that certainly this could wind up with the fire department too, that one of the things Bolton will have to look at over the years is, do we need to have somebody on during the day, a paid person? And we can talk about paperwork, the reporting that's required. It's ever growing.
The job has changed quite a bit since the 1970s when I first got in. The demand on the individuals that volunteer, whether in their own personal jobs, their families, they're growing, they've got different ideas of doing things, they have different responsibilities. Some of the families in town, I've got one of the ladies in the department is actually working 3 different jobs and still volunteering and doing a lot for the community. There's a lot of constraint on it. The training requirements, which maybe we'll speak a little bit later, are put a few hours in for a firefighter or medical training that has to be done. And all the members that we have parlayed that, balanced it very well in their own lives. Sometimes we get members that show up to a good percentage of the calls, a lot of the calls. Others show up when they can, and they're definitely an asset, a benefit at that point in time.
And let's talk about, you're mentioning calls. What types of calls does the fire department respond to?
We respond to the calls that people can't handle themselves anymore, whether it be a person that fell out of bed, whether it be a broken appendage problem, they fell at a house, whether it be a motor vehicle accident, whether it be a structure fire, whether it be a car accident. We do more car accidents than we actually do structure fires in town here, which is
Yes.
our
Good and
staff
bad.
is really good. Yeah, good and bad, but our staff is very, very proficient in the extrication side. And with the Route 6, 44, and 384, we see a lot of activity out there. Yep, definitely do. We do calls a year. It's changed quite a bit, especially with the medical service, really encroaching a lot of those. We turned around and back years ago, maybe ran 200 calls. We're up to over 430, 440 calls per year. That's more than one call a day. And some come back to back. We had power lines down on Route 44 the other day with a storm. And as soon as the lines were de-energized by Eversource, the crews all went home, and 20 minutes later they got called back to a possible structure fire, and en route to that we got a vehicle accident down at Bolton Mobile and 3Js. So we never know what it's going to be, but we've got a very good staff that responds very well for us. Yep.
It's one of those, when it rains, it pours.
It kind of, yeah, it kind of does, yeah.
And weather, unfortunately, does play a lot into when you potentially have the majority of your calls back to back. Unfortunately, the other medical or fire, et cetera, aren't necessarily, they're isolated more. But back to back is usually related to weather somehow.
In a lot of cases it is, yep, in a lot of cases it is. We turned around and luckily this last storm the other night, which put a foot of snow on the road for the highway crew that did an excellent job cleaning that up. Luckily we didn't have any calls until right after it got all cleaned up, and then we had a very interesting motor vehicle accident. We turned around and I've had the crews come and do a standby. Back about a month and a half ago, we had a potential for a very bad storm coming up. We had a number of the members stand by at the firehouse overnight, just anticipating or waiting if an emergency come up, we'd be able to respond properly to that. So.
And let's talk about response. You have a variety of vehicles that people may not be aware of at the fire department for different purposes.
Right now, we're very fortunate the town's provided us with some very nice equipment. We've got a response vehicle for emergency medical or command vehicle type things, a Chevy Suburban, a white truck with lights, you see it. We've got a new red pickup truck, crew cab. We went with a crew cab this time so that we could accommodate more people in the vehicle. Keep the private vehicles off the road as much as we can. Keep all the individuals in one truck, more communication going to call, and it seems to go a lot smoother, for the outcome for the people that are going to help. We also have a engine tank, 1,000-gallon engine tank that has a pump, 1,500-gallon a minute pump. It turned around, it's going to be replaced in approximately 3 years from now. Right. It's got a number of years on it. We've had a lot of pump work done on it. Sometimes these trucks, they go to a lot of calls, it's more so hours that they're running. But when you get a vehicle over 20, 25 years old, the pump manufacturer isn't around to give you the parts. You get a lot of extra rust or deterioration on the vehicle. So again, the town has stepped up and got a replacement program in area here. We turned around, we have a ladder truck that has been one wonderful vehicle for safety for the firefighters. Safety-wise, that it's a 100-foot ladder truck, and we don't have a building that's 100 feet tall, but it reaches out over 100 feet to get over bushes, trees, yards up to the roofs, and we don't have to use ground ladders when we got a foot of snow, to trudge through in the middle of the night to try to get up to somebody's chimney fire that wasn't cleaned properly. We turned around, and the newest member of the fleet is a tanker. It's a Kenworth truck. It's a 3,000-gallon tanker. I love the number 3,000 gallons because I sleep a little better at night because we've got water. We don't have our hydrants in town pressurized water system. Right. We go along with ponds or lakes, rivers we have, or also cisterns. The cisterns being a 30,000-gallon tank that is put into the ground. And we turn around and we've got a brand new one right across the street here in front of the senior center. It's a 30,000-gallon tank, and that adds to the group. We've got a number of them around town now, so makes it a lot more convenient for us to get water. I remember back several years ago, we had a bad fire in Columbia, and it was 4 degrees outside, and we actually had to rely on about 14 or 15 tankers from other communities because all the lakes and ponds were frozen. Right. Well, the cisterns could help us out an awful lot right there, and the town's been positive to increase those numbers. Yep. We also have a rescue truck. It goes back, the rescue truck now is 5 years old, 6 years old. It's surprising how that time
I
goes
know,
by
it
so
doesn't seem
fast.
that old.
I know it. But the rescue truck is set up for medical service, for extrication, for lighting, for hazardous material response, for search and rescue, an interior command post. It's a very, very useful truck for us. We got time.
And certainly a couple of things that you said resonate with me. You talk about pumps and tanks and that. People have to realize that we are usually putting in pond, lake, or well water, not necessarily the nice water you would get from a purified system.
Yeah. Yeah.
That all takes away some of the life expectancy of some of these parts too. It's not the best thing for them.
No, it definitely does, and interesting that you bring that up. We get water from wherever we can,
Yes.
for an emergency. It's nice on our new tanker. We turned around and had a talk with another community, and we put brand new water in it, very, very clear, because I didn't want to make it dirty. But on the other side, that E1 truck that we've got, the engine tank, 1,000-gallon tank,
Right.
we just had to do some pump work on that truck, or not pump work, yes we did, but also the tank. We noticed water was coming out on the bay floor. We're driving down the road and water was coming out. Did some more investigation, and the tank had actually cracked. Well, the nice part is the individuals that put that truck together years ago, back in 1993, got a lifetime guarantee on the tank. So the manufacturer came down from Massachusetts, and helped repair it. But it's all things that you never know is going to happen,
Right.
One day or another. And the water and all the salt that's being put on the
Yes.
roads now, the sand, the rusting, corrosion, it takes its toll on his equipment. And whether it's a brand new fire truck for $800,000, it still takes rust, so.
And another item that you talked about was the ladder truck. And having been active in the fire department years ago, trying to put up a 35-foot ladder,
Yeah.
very heavy, very difficult to get up.
Four people to put that up.
Takes lots
Yep.
of people. And today, with today's construction, lots of people have multiple roof lines. So that also complicates the use of ground ladders anymore.
Oh, definitely does. And not only multiple roof lines, but everyone loves landscaping.
Yes.
And there are bushes and trees that are all around the property that make it very difficult to get close to the house. Yep. The challenges every day.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that you didn't mention that Bolton doesn't have, but people may be wondering about, is we don't run an ambulance service ourselves.
Correct.
But perhaps you can talk about the partnership that we have.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. An ambulance service or ambulance is definitely needed for any medical responses. But in order to run an ambulance properly, you have to have people to do it. And when I was up in Tolland, I was very active in the ambulance service up there. We had 2 ambulances, but we had a lot more personnel in town. You're talking a community of 15 to 18,000 people versus a community of just under 5,000. To have a 24-hour-a-day rotation and 7-day, week schedule for an ambulance makes it very difficult. So what we've done with your assistance, we turned around and sat down with Ambulance Service in Manchester, right local, had a discussion with them on how they can assist us in better taking care of, our people that are in need. I also have a partnership with the multiple different towns around through our mutual aid system, whether it be Andover, whether it be Coventry, Vernon, or Hebron, to bring an ambulance in additionals if we need them. The nice part with Ambulance Service of Manchester, they are actually staging a truck, an ambulance in town here quite a bit of time. So our response time to get somebody taken care of is very quick. When we get out on Route 6, multiple vehicle accidents, multiple patients, whether it be the helicopter, multiple Ambulance Service Manchester trucks, or mutual aid, it's a nice system that has worked very well for us, and we don't have to staff it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is an ambulance call. It's interesting. You can turn around, go out on a call right now, our fire department members, and they'll go out, they'll evaluate a patient. We do the initial emergency medical service or care for them. And then the ambulance comes in, we package them up, and they go off to the hospital. We go home. When they go to the hospital, they transport, They take them into the hospital, describe the situation to the doctors and nurses, then they have to clean the ambulance and come back. So it's, in some cases, especially for the outlying communities, it could be an hour and a half to 2.5 hours for an ambulance call, where fortunate the system we have with ambulance service in Manchester, it's just the time that we're on the scene itself. So.
And your response to that is your level of an emergency medical technician, an EMT,
Right.
and or EMRs that are responding to these calls initially.
Yeah, there's a number of different certifications, and it's changed quite a bit over the years, over the last 48 years, that you don't recognize 48 years. But anyway, when it used to be basic first aid responders, and we carried a little box, you know, or a toolbox that used to have some bandages in it. Then we turned around and went into a emergency medical response, or EMT, emergency medical technician. And that came in back in the early 70s. In fact, one of the first EMTs in the department was a woman in our department. With the EMT certification, it's a 200-hour course of training, both hands-on and classroom training. There's also a lesser course called an EMR. It's probably about 110 hours versus 200 hours, but a different skill set to work through there. Then there's another level, which is paramedic. Now, we are not certified as paramedics. That's where the ambulance service comes in. And the paramedics are the ones responsible that can actually give you drugs through intravenous IVs and things like that on the scene. So we are we're what's called an R1 for the state of Connecticut, the first responders, and at the EMT level. And I think I've got the R1 research on my desk. It's got to be done this month. Talk about paperwork.
Yes.
But I think we're at about 16 EMTs or EMRs in the fire department right now. Yep. Could be a
And
little more.
the EMT itself has a refresher that people have to go through also.
Yes, refresher depending on the time in service you've had. It's either a 2-year recertification or a 3-year. Right. And at this point in time, we have somebody with us today that just recertified as an EMT. Yes. You know, let me digress a little bit here. Talk about somebody here today. Back in December 1988, someone in this room decided that they wanted to get into the emergency services, the fire department. And Joyce, you turned in an application back December 1988. Yeah. It took 2 months to act on that application at that point, so it was actually February 1989 when it came to the department. Joyce was very active in the department and went for about 3 years where she became a lieutenant. And a year later, she turned a letter in and said, I want to do more. So she worked her way up through captain. In fact, throughout the years, in fact, there's her application going back then. But throughout the years, she took her, and these were very interesting, I thought, because kind of pertinent to what she does right now, or has done for a number of years. Here's a certification here, 1994, for incident command systems, kind of running things, right. Kind of like the town hall. Hazardous material operations refresher. That's very interesting. Hazardous material, that comes in a number of cases for what you've done over the years.
Yes.
Connecticut Fire Academy. And then she continued on to a rapid intervention team. Yeah. What that is, if somebody has a problem in a fire, if we have a fireman that goes down, the rapid intervention team will enter the fire and just go to save that person. Kind of what happened the other day up in Berwick, Maine. And then, as her career continued and she got very active in the town, here's a letter on May 16, 2003. She retired from the fire service. 14 years, but that's not all. After 14 years, Joyce retired as assistant chief in the fire department.
Yes.
Okay, admirable career. But turned around also and said, I'm not done. So ever since then, she has worked with the retention program with the fire department, every year doing mounds of paperwork. And actually, we've put all the time together. Joyce, you get 30 years in the service. Thank you from the men and women of the fire department. Thank you very much for your service. So.
Not expected.
No, that's well.
Unfortunately, I'm expecting more of these types of things to happen as my shows go on, which is not necessarily good.
Okay.
But no, I did go through the EMT. I did have continued to maintain that. To me, it's one of those things you never know where you're going to be that you might need to give a hand.
Right.
Went through firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and have enjoyed my time working with the fire department, definitely.
Excellent.
So a
So on
little
that
bit of
note, if you'd
extra
like to
knowledge.
on that note, if you'd like
That's
to
right.
volunteer for the fire department, please stop down any Monday night. We're there after 7 o'clock, and more than happy to talk to you.
And it's a great place to learn and be a part of a team that makes a difference in the community. You know, you talked a little bit about the different officer positions that I went through, but maybe we could talk about officers that they have a special role in the department.
Yeah, the officers in the department they're involved quite a bit in many different things. In fact, I discussed this with the membership last night at our monthly meeting. I just made some changes in the officer role. Very pleased. I did make a change with it. Back 6 years ago, the department voted Deputy Chief Peter Mora into office.
Yes.
Peter's been in the department for it's getting close to 50 years. It's not yet, so I'm not letting him go. But Deputy Chief Mora, I've been out of service for shoulder surgery for a while, and he's turned around and run the department operationally wise and done one fantastic job over that period of time. To assist him, we turned around. We've got Captain Chip White. He's been in the department for about 29 years now. Very proficient in the ladder truck and the tanker. Ask him if you want to see a smile on his face. Ask him about the new tanker. From there, I just made a new appointment, Captain Steve Maroney. Steve's he's got his own private business. He's also been a firefighter down at Foxwoods. He's in a paramedic program right now through Hartford Hospital. And he's going to be an upcoming man, definitely a benefit asset to the fire department. We've got lieutenants. I've got a number of lieutenants position. First one is Lieutenant Malin Clark. Malin's been in the department, and I'm probably wrong, but 11 or 12 years now. He's a town employee, and he's a hands-on man. He's been going through some problems, health problems himself, and overcome them. Very pleased with that, but he's definitely an asset to us, looking at some different things. Right below him in lieutenant stage is his son, Lieutenant Tyler Clark. Tyler's in charge of all of the emergency medical supplies, ordering, stocking of the vehicles. He's also currently a firefighter at Foxwoods Casino. Dan Ross, lieutenant, works for the state of Connecticut, Child and Family Services. He's been a lieutenant for me for about 2 years now. He's in charge of all the radio communication equipment, pagers that we carry, for going to calls that alert us for that, different radio systems. That's a big job for 40 different people to have all that communication. Lieutenant John DeMoro, I just appointed, is a full lieutenant. He's been a fire police lieutenant for a number of years for us. And with John, whenever we have an incident on the highway, 384, Route 6, 44 accident, I don't have to worry about traffic. John and his team have done a fantastic job out there, and it's not a good place to work. It's a very dangerous situation. But because of his new certifications, firefighter and EMT, I promoted up to a full lieutenant.
Excellent.
Another lieutenant just promoted is Michael Ermita. He's past chief of East Hartford. He's working on his EMR right now, recertification, and a wealth of knowledge. He's just qualified in a couple of different vehicles, and his third career in fire service is going like this, Another lieutenant is actually chief engineer for the fire department, which means he's in charge of all the mobile equipment in the department. John Roback, true gentleman. He's also on the fire commission and backs me up. We talk about just briefly the paperwork, mountains of paperwork compared to what it used to be, but also the budget system. John and I work very, very closely with the budget, making sure checks and balances on both sides. And he deals with the finance office across the street and the fire commission that we both report to. So I think I got them all. I don't think I missed
And we should talk a little bit about, there's always, 40 people may sound like a lot, but it's not, because people's availability differs greatly day to day to evening to nighttime. So need new members all the time. Training. You support training every Monday night, plus other opportunities for training. You'll send people to school. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Yeah, we send them to school. As far as the training, it's all covered by the town. They've helped us out quite a bit there. Whether it be firefighter training, whether it be the EMT training, any of the medical service training, whether it be the fire police training, etc. We're very fortunate that right now we've got a new school being constructed out at Eastern Connecticut Fire School.
Yes.
1954 the school started, and the buildings were in place then, and they deteriorated while we
Took my training out there.
Pardon me?
I took my training out
I've
there.
got the certificates right here to prove that one, yeah. But through the governor's actions, through bonding program, we're in the process of building a new school, and we've got 2 buildings in starting process in construction right now. So late fall this year, where any of the members would go down there for any fire training. Very intense, very good, and they come out. I've got one individual right now, he's in the real estate business, and he wanted to come back into service, and he's taking his Fire One training down
Excellent.
Columbia Firehouse, where he moved all of the training to now. But no, always looking for different individuals come see us for the training side, for membership side, and there's a place for anybody in the firehouse. I'll make sure it happens. Yeah.
Yes, because there's fire police, there's the medical, there's the fire suppression.
Support.
There's support. There's lots of opportunities.
Sure.
It's I just can't encourage people enough to take the opportunity to look at that as a place to go and learn, and you'll be rewarded.
Definitely will. Definitely will.
Closing thoughts from you?
No, thank you very much. I believe this is the 6th time I've had the opportunity to sit and interact with you. We've interacted very, very well over the last 6 years. I've been chief on the administrative side of the town. And thank you very much again for what you've done for the town of Bolton.
Thank you, Chief. As always, you know, the chief it surprised me, that's for sure. But he's been an excellent person and an excellent person representing Bolton in the fire service as well. So I appreciate all of your efforts and your officers. Just a couple of closing items. We're in budget season. You will see the Board of Finance budget calendar is up on our town's website. The April 30th will actually be the budget hearing. This week, the Board of Selectmen meets tonight for its regular meeting. On Thursday night, they'll be actually adopting their budget to send to the Board of Finance. My next show will actually be Sandy Pirog, our first selectman, who will be here to talk about the town's budget and what we're proposing to go forward. The other item I just want to mention again is please remember the 300th anniversary and the celebration that's coming up. We continue to try to plan events, and that meeting is next week. Check out the town's website, sign up for the e-bulletin, sign up for the emergency notification system. There's opportunities out there for you to take an active role in the community, and I ask you to do so. As always, I want to thank Community Voice Channel for its ongoing support, and I will see you in 2 weeks.